welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today we're going to be talking about Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. This was the fifth film in the Friday the 13th franchise, and this one was directed by Danny Steinman. And after the final chapter in 1984, which was supposed to end the Friday the 13th franchise, somebody at Paramount got cold feet, and probably because they saw what the budget was for these movies and how much money they were actually taking home for the studio. They were like, wait, we're going to end this? Why? Let's just take Jason out of it, and we'll put another guy who looks like Jason, let them think it's Jason, and we'll put that movie out, and it should be successful. Well, they weren't wrong. It did only cost $2.2 million to make, and it ended up making over $21 million at the box office. If you go by the rule of thumb, you double the budget to start being profitable, and this movie was very profitable. And it was supposed to actually set up a new trilogy of Friday the 13th films that didn't include Jason, but because people got very upset, much like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, where you didn't have the main villain in there, they decided, you know what, we're going to scrap that idea, and we're going to bring Jason back for Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. So this is really the outlier in the series, the most hated film in the series by a lot of fans. I always see this one floating at the bottom of people's Friday the 13th list. And you know what? I disagree with that. Is this one of the worst in the franchise? From an acting standpoint, absolutely.
Look, Joey, we really have to get this thing finished, okay?
So I'm here to help you.
Absolutely, but it is very much of the 1980s slasher genre, which just means you have a bunch of characters you want to see die, because they're just some of the worst people walking this earth.
One fucking ugly man that goes there.
That's one fucking ugly man, Mama.
Would you shut your trap?
And you know what? We want to see Jason do it, and we don't get Jason doing it. This is going to be a spoiler alert. We get Roy, the ambulance driver, doing it this time around because his son, a mentally challenged person, it seems, is living at this orphanage/mental hospital that's being run by this guy, really friendly guy, nice guy, wants to do some good in the world, but he's got a bunch of troubled teens living there. And one day, one of the most troubled teens decides to take out his anger on a kid who's just, you know what, he's innocent, he means well, but this other kid has so much anger, so he swings an axe and just murders the hell out of him. And one of the ambulance drivers there to pick up the body turns out to be this kid's dad. And of course, he's the world's worst dad, so he's let his son live in basically the same town as him, and he's never checked up on him his entire life. Basically, he just abandoned him, but now he's really upset that he's dead. So now he's like, oh my god, I gotta get the revenge out on all these kids and parents and everybody else in this town of Crystal Lake. I'll take the form of Jason because you know what? Everyone's willing to blame Jason, and he's come back to life before, so why not? No one will suspect Roy, the ambulance driver. And we know it's not Jason because his mask in this film has blue marks on it instead of the usual red marks. And this movie, in my opinion, it's very entertaining. That's really what you're there for. And actually, I would put this at pretty high on my list. And to this point, I would put this at number 2, only behind the final chapter, just because I enjoy the hell out of it. It just feels like a 1980s slasher film. You're not there to take it too seriously. Everybody is doing an awful job acting, including Juana Man himself, Miguel A. Nunez Jr. Actually, this came out, I believe, the same year as Return of the Living Dead, and he's in that as well. It's continuing in the Tommy Jarvis trilogy of films, which you can't take too seriously because in 1984 is the final chapter. You had Corey Feldman playing Tommy Jarvis as a kid, and we get him at the very beginning of this movie. They actually shot this in his home's backyard to get him in this movie, just to see Jason coming back to life, and then we cut, and it's supposed to be years in the future, and now we have Tommy. He's a mute now. It's been a long time, and this is where the timeline starts to get a little convoluted because we have a ton of time jumps like this, but yet the Friday the 13th franchise continues to release films 1 year or 2 years apart, so by the time we get to Jason Takes Manhattan, it's not too hard to believe that it's sometime in the late 90s. So the timeline gets all screwed up here, and then eventually when we get to Jason Lives, Tommy is no longer a mute. He's a regular fast-talking son of a gun, so you can just throw out everything that happens in this movie, which is exactly what Paramount wanted you to do. They wanted you to forget that this movie even exists, other than the fact that Tommy went and stayed at some sort of mental hospital like this, basically run by the state, even though the people in the town, including one of the worst characters in the entire series, Ethel,
I want this loony bin closed down. Do you hear me, fella? Now, these kids ain't nothing but trouble.
just hates these kids just because they live in the same town as her, even though her son, probably one of the biggest idiots in film history, is over there.
Say it like you mean it, Ma.
Would you shut the fuck up?
Driving her around, just doing everything that she wants. And then, of course, Ethel, because she's a piece of shit woman, is abusing him as well. So, we can't wait to see these two die. And that's a great thing about these movies. You know, they set up all these characters who are just awful. This guy driving around in a Dodge Charger, oozing white trash and disgust. You know, he's got this terrible mustache. He looks like, honestly, I don't know how he's dating this beautiful waitress, but somehow he is. He just looks like one of the worst people walking this earth. Of course, this couple ends up eating it as well. And by the time we get to the end of this movie where it's revealed that, hey, you know what? It wasn't Jason doing this. It was Roy the ambulance driver. We even get a nice explanation like it's the end of Psycho, just to lay it all out for us. And people were just so disappointed by this movie at the time because it didn't include Jason. But it feels like a film that would include Jason. That's why I still think it's very entertaining. Just because Jason's not in it, he's not the man behind the mask. It still feels like a Jason Voorhees Friday the 13th film. We just know by the end of it, it's not. It actually, you know what? It would be a compelling story if it was just executed a little bit better, but it's an over-the-top cheese fest. The director of this film said that, let's go shoot in the woods and make a fucking film. He basically said the studio just gave him a bunch of money to go shoot a film in the woods, and a lot of people thought he was just out there making a porno with the way these scenes are all set up. They're all ridiculous setups that lead to some pretty good kills, in my opinion. It's shot very well. It looks very good. The score is great. So if you go into this knowing that it's not Jason, you might still enjoy it just for the film itself. Don't go into this thinking it's an Academy Award-winning film because, my God, it is absolutely not. But it is a very entertaining Friday the 13th film, a perfect film for this time of the year, perfect for spooky season. So if you always skip this film because you know Jason's not in it, I can actually recommend you check this one out, and you might enjoy yourself. And before we get into the Blu-ray review from Scream Factory, if you are a fan of movie reviews, 4K Blu-ray reviews, lists, podcasts, and shorts, we try and do them all here on the channel, and nothing would help this channel out more than by just simply liking this video and subscribing to the channel. And we're back with my Scream Factory 2020 entire Friday the 13th franchise Blu-ray box set, and we're going to come inside this bad boy and we're going to find Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. And here it is right here with the nice individual box art that fits the uniform box art of the entire box set. You come inside, so this is only one disc, so you get all your extras, the film, audio options, all on this disc. There's an entire extras disc at the very end of this box set, but you get a lot of extras actually included here, including a really good making of documentary. It's not very long, but it really gets you into the mindset of a lot of the actors, the director, what the studio wanted to do with this film. And actually, for a making of documentary that's included on the 5th Friday the 13th film, one that's not very popular, the amount of extras, that making of documentary, the 3 audio commentary tracks, including a new audio commentary track with a bunch of the actors, is really awesome. So if you are a fan of Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, you get plenty of extras on this disc. And they really didn't have to do that. This film is not that popular. A lot of people actually really hate this film. So for them to actually spring for the bells and whistles for this one really does show. Although this is one of the films that did not get a brand new 4K scan. So I don't know when the last time they actually did a scan for this film. My guess is before that 2009, I want to say, Friday the 13th box set. So it's been around for a while. You also get a DTS Master Audio 5.1, a 2.0 mono, and just like the previous films in this set, it's going to start out in that mono track. I personally always switch it to the 5.1 and it sounds pretty damn good. Again, the score is really good. The dialogue is mixed very well. The sound effects are all mixed great. You can set the volume at whatever you want, put the remote down, and it's still going to be really, really good. I mean, for a 5.1 track, I don't know when it was mixed. I still think they did a really good job on that. And the visuals were actually pretty damn good as well. For one of the films that didn't get a new scan in here, I still thought that this film looked visually better than Friday the 13th Part 2 and Part 3, in my opinion. And that might be source material. You know, we're up to 1985 now. The cameras are getting a little bit better. They're getting really good at lighting the scenes, and they were giving these guys more money than they were at the beginning of the franchise, and it really does show on screen. Even though it doesn't cost much to make these movies, it still shows on screen when you do give these guys a bigger budget and you send them out there to make a good film. Now, the only issue is, do you think this is a good film or not? Well, I do think it's a pretty good film, and for what they gave us here on this Blu-ray, I am very surprised and very happy, because I really enjoy this film. Like I said, at this point, it is my second favorite film in the Friday the 13th franchise. That's all going to change once we get to Jason Lives, but for right now, Friday the 13th, A New Beginning is a really solid entry, and I still would rank it above Friday the 13th, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. The only one that's slightly better than that is Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, and I really think they mastered what the Friday the 13th franchise can be once we get to Friday the 13th, Jason Lives, and that's the next one we'll be talking about. I'm hoping to get these videos out a little bit bit closer together, but we've had so many new releases lately, I have to keep up with those first and then put out the Friday the 13th films. But we got a lot more coming for you guys this spooky season, so if you're enjoying my franchise review of the entire Friday the 13th franchise, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, get out in those streets, and tell your friends about us, and we'll be seeing you around.